G'day guys, Rukshania. Thanks for joining me for the news vlog. I hope you've had a lovely start to your week. Before I get into the news about Taylor Swift, the Super Bowl, and all that kind of nonsense, I wanted to discuss with you this very important story out of Australia. And this relates to something that I covered very early on when I started doing these vlogs around the release of these immigrants from a detention facility where they were being held because they had criminal convictions and they'd committed all types of offences. Well, due to a High Court ruling, under the Albanese Labor government, these people were released out into the community. And we heard about at the time that there were some of these individuals were committing crimes. And we then heard the Labor government say that they're going to take action against these, put ankle bracelets on some of these people, and so on. So we've got a few updates on that story. But the most important document that I want to share with you guys today is this document, which was released in the Parliament today, around what these people had been charged with or what offences they had committed. So at least 7 of these people who are now roaming about in the Australian public had either committed murder or attempted murder. 37 of them sexually based offending, including child sex offending. 72 of them assault and violent offending, kidnapping and armed robbery. 16 of them domestic violence and stalking. 13 of them serious drug offending. Less than 5, people smuggling, crimes of serious international concern. And less than 5 again, low level or no criminality. So out of that 149 people that were put out into the public, only about 5 of them have no serious criminal activity to their name. The rest of them have very serious criminal activity associated with them. I mean, you got murderers and attempted murderers out there in the public. You got people who are accused of or charged with child sex offending out in the public. You have people who have got serious drug offending, people involved in people smuggling. This is crazy that these kind of individuals have been let out into the public and they have gone on to commit offences against Australians as well. Let me just read you this article from the ABC of all places. A bit of a neutral view on this topic, I believe, and then I can give you some of my thoughts. Half of the 149 released immigration detainees convicted of violent offending, kidnapping, or robbery. Why don't we put in there murder? I mean, I guess less than half haven't committed murder, but let the public know that there's murderers and attempted murderers out there roaming about in the Australian streets. Nearly 40 people released from immigration detention have been told they do not have to wear an electronic monitoring bracelet, despite the government talking tough on protecting the community. A decision by the High Court last year ruled indefinite immigration detention unlawful and resulted in the release of 149 people from immigration detention. Senior government ministers insisted community safety was their #1 priority and announced electronic monitoring, nighttime curfews, and financial reporting requirements would be imposed. However, a request for further information by the opposition has revealed of the 149 people released, only 103 people have had all of the restrictions applied to them. Of the 149, 113 people have been required to wear an electronic ankle monitoring device. The legislation states that electronic monitoring must be imposed unless the minister is satisfied the person does not pose a risk to the community. Shadow Immigration Minister Dan Tehan used question time to push Immigration Minister Andrew Giles on why some people do not have to abide by the restrictions. The minister has determined that 36 people will not be required to wear ankle bracelets, he said. Minister, can you confirm that it is your position that none of these individuals pose a threat to the Australian community? Mr. Giles distanced himself from the decision, saying it was made by the Community Border Protection Board, which consists of officials from Border Force and Home Affairs, as well as former law enforcement officials. Oh, that really makes me feel very confident about all of this. We have 4 layers of protection, including stringent visa conditions, electronic monitoring, and curfew arrangements, as well as preventative arrangements. The management of everyone in this cohort is determined by professional men and women of the Community Safety Board who have been providing evidence-based assessments on the application of those measures, the subject laws that we all supported in this place to keep people safe. 7 people have been charged for breaching visa conditions since their release. So yeah, look, I mean, the updated information also shows 18 people have been charged for breaking law in various states and territories since being released from immigration detention. That's what I wanted to bring up. So at least 18 of these individuals, since being put out into the public, have committed crimes in various states around the country. Why have we ended up in this situation where we have these detention programs for undoubtedly people who are, trying to migrate to this country in illegal fashion? That's why they're in detention for whatever reason. And then they've been let out into the public because the court systems, the governments, everything's failed. So we've got 149 people, some murderers, kidnappers, with ankle bracelets, some of them now, roaming around in our community. For who? For what? For what benefit is this serving besides putting the community at risk? Like, this is a weird story that we would be in such a position in this country that our governments are so inept, that our court system is so degraded that they would have to end up releasing these type of individuals into the community. I mean, I've repeated it a few times now. Let me know what you think about this story. I think this is mind-boggling. If this was happening under the coalition government right now and this release happened, I think you'd have a lot more coverage of this with people losing their minds. I think this is a disastrous situation that we're finding ourselves in, and obviously this needs to be rectified. I don't know if just monitoring these people go far enough. Why are murderers and attempted murderers allowed in this country? Like, if they're trying to immigrate here, shouldn't they be deported? Why are people who have committed child sexual offending because they came through some type of illegal means, or they got caught doing something, kept in immigration? Why aren't they just deported? Like, why do we have to have these rights and laws for people who have clearly committed these type of crimes, and now they're out there in the Australian public, no doubt enjoying some type of benefits from the people looking after them as well? I'm not trying to be too harsh and strict here. I think first things first, we need to protect the Australian community. Let me know your thoughts. All right, guys, next story that I have is the Super Bowl. Now, everyone's talking about the Super Bowl. I don't watch sport, let alone the Super Bowl. I have no interest in it. I barely watch the football here. I do go for Hawthorn, if ever anyone's wondering. And of course, people look at me and think, oh, maybe you watch the cricket. I used to watch cricket a long time ago. Even the cricket I can't stand anymore. It's so boring, and there's just so much cricket now. You can't watch it. It used to be a lot better, the cricket, back in the day, when there were, the players were like sledging each other off more openly, right? When there was a bit more rivalry between the different nations, when they would team up with each other, when they were calling Sri Lankan bowlers chuckers, right? I mean, I didn't enjoy that per se, but that was more entertaining and more fun because you wanted to watch those games. Now, these days, they're all like mates and friends. And sorry, I digress. I've gone off on a tangent. Back to the Super Bowl. This is let's watch this video. Let's see how much people paid to actually go and watch the Super Bowl.
What did you spend on your Super Bowl tickets? 13 grand.
10,000 bucks. 9,000 a ticket. It's a lifetime dream of mine to be here. I'm a little emotional. My dad did this for my birthday. 8,500 a piece. I actually got my ticket for free.
Cost 8,000. Was it worth it? Are you excited to be here?
Oh my God, yes. I didn't have to. I know a guy that knows the guy.
That's a lot of money these people are spending to be there. It's very expensive to get there. I guess it's a big population in the US, very limited tickets, and so they can have these kind of exorbitant prices. But a lot of these people witnessed today the fulfilling of a prophecy, and that is Taylor Swift's boyfriend, what's his name, Cleese or whatever, winning the Super Bowl with the Kansas City, what's their names, Chiefs. So yeah, that prophecy has been fulfilled, and even Joe Biden chimed in with a tweet, just like we drew it up with his dark branded meme. I mean, this guy can't remember where he is. We've talked about this, right? He doesn't even know where he is, and here he is doing these memes about the NFL after it happened. Just like they planned everything. But did you guys watch the Super Bowl? Let me know what you think. This is Mr. Pfizer himself. What's his name? Kyle Cleese, turning up in his swagger suit. I guess that's what Pfizer endorsement ends up doing to you. Or is it Taylor Swift dressing him? Who the hell knows? But yeah, one of the interesting parts of the Super Bowl is beyond the sport. It's a major event where a lot of people are watching on television and these days on social media. And of course, you have the Super Bowl commercials. Now, one company that did run a commercial at the Super Bowl was Pfizer. Now, I can't play the audio from this because it'll get flagged on YouTube. But Pfizer, their whole Super Bowl commercial was around this new fight that they're undertaking, the fight against cancer. Now, it seems like a noble cause, and they've used all types of other historical figures like Albert Einstein, you had Isaac Newton, these breakthroughs in the scientific world that these people are known for. And, here Pfizer, they're kind of paying homage to that, and also saying the next breakthrough has to be a cure for cancer. So Pfizer is very interested in finding a cure or something to do with cancer, or there's news all the time now that cancer rates have increased. I can't go into too much about what I think about all of this. Let me know in the comments if you have any thoughts, if those comments, of course, are not censored. There was also another commercial that has drawn the ire of Christians around the world. So I can't play the audio from this as well, but I'll play the actual commercial. And you can see here it's Jesus didn't teach us hate, he washed feet, which was a message of this commercial. So it's all types of people in America, usually white people, washing the feet of people who are either looking like immigrants. Someone here in front of a abortion clinic, it looks like. It's just showing the Christian message of, I guess, forgiving sin, or Jesus kind of overlooked all the negatives of an individual and still forgave them or washed their feet and so forth. So some Christians I've seen online have taken offense to this. Although this is in line with the Christian message, it does appear to have been hijacked for some woke style propaganda, where Christians are this subservient group that are willing to turn the cheek and give in to almost anything because that's a Christian thing to do. It's an interesting commercial. I can see both arguments from this. Let me know what your thoughts are. It did remind me of this scene of this individual in France going into a church. This, I believe it's an illegal immigrant, and slapping this priest, and then, taking the Bible with him and going. I'm all for the Christian message, by the way. I believe very deeply in forgiving people for their sins and their flaws, and I also believe in concepts like turning the cheek and all this kind of stuff. But I also believe that in the West, especially, the Christian communities are losing their influence over society, or their connection to the society. However you want to term this, these are mainly Christian countries around the West initially, and now you have other religions that have come in, and they more so dominate over Christian faiths. And I don't necessarily think that's a good thing. I think there should be an equal balance. If you're going to have these multi-faith societies, there should be an equal balance. But it's always these Christians who are told to be meek, to turn the other cheek, and so forth. But I think there are principles, there are Christian values that are worth defending. And I'm not saying that because I grew up a Roman Catholic or anything like this, but I truly believe like there's something related to our Christian values and our history in the West that emanates from this, that has created these type of countries. So we shouldn't lose those things just by turning the other cheek and forgiving certain types of things which go against these type of values. Again, let me know what you think. Maybe I'm thinking about this too much of a religious way, and I'm wrong about this, but I do think there's something to it, because when I travel around the world and go to other countries, those countries, whatever issues that they have, a lot of the religious faiths that they underpin society and keep things together, whether it's traditional family units, whether it's just a common sense approach to things like gender, a lot of those things are protected by the religious institutions. And I know there's people who are atheists and agnostic and so on. I get all of these things, but I don't think all the time that governments can themselves, without having any type of influence like this, be the end all of how we should live our lives or how these societies should function. Again, let me know what you think. Maybe I'm completely wrong about all of this. And in all of this, if you can't afford to run a proper Super Bowl ad with all the bells and whistles, you can do what Kanye West does and do this type of commercial instead.
Hey y'all, this Gary, and this my commercial. And since we spent all the money on the commercial spot, we actually didn't spend any money on the actual commercial. But the idea is, I want you to go to Yeezy.com, YEEZY.com, and I'm gonna write it at the bottom of the screen. And I got some shoes, and
you get the idea. I mean, is this an effective commercial? Like, I do a bit of marketing research and all this kind of stuff. This seems like an effective commercial. He still got his message across. It's quite funny. It's on brand for Kanye, and he hasn't spent all the money on the actual production of the commercial. He just spent money on purchasing to have the commercial aired. I don't know. I found that quite hilarious. On to some local news. Back to Australia, we have more women joining in against John Pesutto, the opposition leader here in Victoria from the Liberal Party. So we have Moira Deeming, who is also from the Liberal Party, who is suing him for defamation. And we have now two other women who are at that rally also suing the opposition leader, John Pesutto, for defamation. Come on, think about this, right? The leader of the opposition in Victoria is spending his time defending himself against claims of defamation by women in this state who were at a women's rights rally to talk about issues in society which are causing them fear, which are causing them harm, which are causing them to worry about their place in society. And the opposition leader has allegedly defamed them on television and all types of other instances. So he is now spending his time defending himself in court against women that he should, as an opposition leader, I think, in my personal belief, should have stood next to besides them and listened to their concerns, even expressed some of the same concerns, because I feel like, especially from that liberal conservative voter base, a lot of people would agree with these women and the things that they're standing for. So it's crazy to think that this is the position that our so-called opposition leader here in Victoria has ended up in. It's quite a shame, if you ask me. This story, next story I have is around Israel and the Gaza conflict. Now, Australia has warned Israel regarding its plans for the Rafah ground offensive, which has taken place overnight. There has been around 50 casualties, civilian casualties, as being reported from Gaza, and 2 Israeli hostages has also been rescued as a part of that raid. So Israeli forces rescued 2 hostages in dramatic Gaza raid that killed at least 50 Palestinians. Israeli forces rescued 2 hostages early Monday, storming a heavily guarded apartment in the southern Gaza Strip and extracting the captives under fire in a dramatic raid that was small but symbolically significant success for Israel. The operation killed at least 50 Palestinians, including women and children, according to Palestinian health officials in the beleaguered territory. The raid was celebrated in Israel, which has been seeking the release of more than 100 captives held by Hamas and other militant groups. But the operation also brought heavy airstrikes pounding the Rafah city on the southern edge of the Gaza Strip, where 1.4 million Palestinians have fled to escape fighting elsewhere in the Israel-Hamas war. Dozens were killed. 2 elderly men have been rescued by the IDF in this raid, but 50 people apparently have been killed, according to Palestinian health authorities. This is a no-win situation, no matter how you look at this. But Israel is celebrating this, and I think Israel is also using this to show that there are still hostages in these enclaves, in these situations, in this area of Rafah, in this instance, and this is to give legitimacy to the actions that they're taking. Let me know your thoughts on this. Of course, like I've said every time that I cover this issue, I understand this is a complicated topic and people have different views based on where their allegiances lie, either, or where their humanity lies, if you ask some people, or just based on the fact that they are anti-war. Now, add to this also the fact that an Al Jazeera journalist, this person here, Mohammed Washa, his laptop was found by the IDF, and it contains some very interesting images and documents and photographs. And you can see him here doing a piece to camera for Al Jazeera, which is a Qatari-based newspaper outlet. And he's wearing a press jacket here. So we've had all these instances of journalists being killed in that conflict. And I think it's a very hard situation to find yourself as a journalist in Gaza, especially Hamas-controlled Gaza, because you're in a situation where obviously the tensions are high, you're in a war zone, there's bombs dropping everywhere, as well as you have this group in Hamas that you may have to appease to be able to operate in that area as a journalist. That's possibly the truth, the reality of all of this. And anyone that's looking at this from a neutral standpoint can see this. Even myself as an independent journalist, I can see that this problem can exist, this bias can exist, depending on the people that you have to appease in those areas to survive. Literally, it's life and death for a lot of these people. But in this instance, I think it's a little bit different. There's a way you can give a pass to some of the journalists who are engaged in this type of propaganda. Some would frame it as. This particular individual, Mohammed Washa, these findings take it to another level because it really raises questions. In the images you have of him operating weapons with Hamas, guiding Hamas individuals to use those weapons. You have him manufacturing types of weapons or IEDs or bombs, whatever, for deployment from drones. This is very different to then a traditional journalist caught up in this conundrum where they have to pick their loyalties because of what's happening to their country. This is an instance where a journalist is alleged journalist for Al Jazeera is manufacturing weapons, is using those weapons, and potentially committing acts of terrorism in the process as well. Very troubling. And if Australia was attacked one day by, let's say, hypothetically, those most likely to attack us, China, for instance, if Australia was attacked by China, I am not going to be, sympathetic to the CCP as an Australian. It's very unlikely. I'm already not sympathetic to the CCP. So if China is attacking Australia, of course, as a journalist, I would have to measure up my loyalties. Now, you might think that's incorrect, but until you're in a war zone, until you're in that situation yourself, it's hard to figure out exactly how you will react. But I don't think that I would necessarily be sympathetic to the CCP if Australia was under attack. Let me know what your thoughts are. I'm just being completely honest here about my views based on my views of the CCP. All right, guys, almost rounding it up with the stories. I know it's gone on for a little bit today, but we had a bit to get through because of the Super Bowl. Western Australia bans ham and cheese sandwiches from school canteens as new dietary rules come into effect. Now, this headline sounds a bit rough. It sounds like the Western Australian government is controlling how kids eat food at school, and there is an element to this in this story. But of course, parents can still give their children at the moment ham and cheese sandwiches if they want. And if you read more details into this story, I think if they have 60% of healthy food in that canteen, they can still offer these type of ham sandwiches for the moment. So there's like a coloring scale of sandwiches or for food that they have in canteens, and it's around trying to make food more healthy in canteens. Now, I remember going to school and I just enjoyed all types of junk food from the canteens. Back in the day, was ordering Sunny Boys and pies, and then it was I think we call them Jaffas at our school, and lamingtons and things like this. Vanilla slice, that was quite popular, like a popular thing for kids to get at high school. So I don't know. Does this mean that the government will eventually say, oh, kids should be eating 10% of their food should be bugs one day? All right, WEF, Agenda 2030. Like, is this what Klaus Schwab wants? Is this how it's done, by creating these systems of scales of food? I know we've seen this tried in the UK. I think Michelle Obama did something like this in the US when she was the first lady. So there's nothing new. These type of things and these type of initiatives. We do have somewhat of an unhealthy population in this country. There is a bit of an obesity issue, especially amongst the younger people. So there is merit, maybe to having more healthier foods available to children, and doing that type of thing. Definitely. But there's always that worrying in the back of my mind, and probably many of your minds, about the government involvement in these type of programs and where this all leads to. Let's see. And the last story I have, guys, is this interesting one to end with. I'm not sure what to make of this story. It's being reported in this fashion. A mob of anti-tech people attacked an autonomous Waymo vehicle and set it on fire in Chinatown, San Francisco. The socialist crowd is of the opinion that the Google-owned company is about to take the jobs away from tens of thousands of Uber drivers. Now, I don't know if this account that's making this post is being a bit of tongue-in-cheek here, but it is interesting. They're attacking this autonomous vehicle that was driving through San Francisco. It's a Google-owned car, and it does appear people are smashing it up. I'm thinking about a future where people might turn on robots or other autonomous vehicles that are taking their jobs. Who knows? Is it true? Are these people in Chinatown worried about autonomous vehicles and these kind of things taking away their jobs in the future, taking away, Uber drivers, right? Would you get into an autonomous vehicle that was cheaper, or one that's driven by a human that costs more? Most likely, people, if the safety standards improve so much in these autonomous vehicles, people would most likely pick the cheaper option. And a lot of these companies would pick the cheaper option, which is the autonomous vehicle. Why would you want to pay a worker when you can have an autonomous vehicle, and don't have to worry about insurances for the individual driving, all these kind of, you don't have to worry about people getting tired. Of course, if this technology improves to such an extent, industries like Uber will exist, but these companies will get rid of the human element in this. So I don't know if this is kind of the first type of, Terminator style scene that we're seeing, where the people rise up and take on the machines. I don't know. But let me know what you guys think of this. I thought it was quite interesting, and of all places, it's happening in Chinatown, San Francisco, and it's China that's mass producing a lot of this type of technology. So if anywhere it's going to happen, I think it'll happen in China as well. Anyway, guys, that's my vlog for today. I hope you're enjoying this series of vlogs. You can follow me on YouTube at The Real Rukshan. Just hit the notification bell and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. I also have turned this into a podcast with a click of a button on YouTube. So apparently you can link up to this as a podcast if you want to get the audio version through YouTube at the moment. I will try to syndicate it to some other platforms as well. Some people have requested that because it's probably easier for them to listen to this later on. You can also find me on X, where else? Facebook, Rumble, Odyssey, at The Real Rukshan, or on my website, www.realrukshan.com. Anyway, guys, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.